Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this webinar, second one for the day already. Our topic today, at least this afternoon, is going to be about using video as a means for communication.
And we're experimenting, putting church welcomes onto church and just saying, "Hey guys, it's Friday now, but Sunday is coming." And we would put like a cool little backtrack behind it, and we'll see you at church. And I couldn't believe the reach that we had on just a small 30-second video. But back then, that was pioneering. And using technology spaces like Facebook and bringing it together with some video, it turned out exponential on the weekends with the attendance. And so I really saw the power in that, and I thought, no, I have to bring the two worlds together, be it church and video, and how we do this thing online. I have to draw it closer together. And so that came a lot of trying to find another basis to replace me, so I could go around and film the church services and make cool things, or when we did series and try and package series together to create some online momentum. Really drawing out power one-liners from preachers and putting it together with a video intro and a video outro for a series. Those things are still powerful today. And I really think that there are people in the South African church who are doing it well, but I think globally it's done way better. And I think we need to always open our perspective to the people doing it globally. So basically, moving into Link Church on the site that we built, I think that was the real point in my life where I had to step up. This is when I met Nathan, and Nathan came into my life when we went up to, I can still remember going up to the Old Stage Audio Works building and reviewing a bunch of D&B kit with Carsten from K2C. And he was the installer in our building who did a lot of the production stuff. And I can remember part of the kit art for the building was an old ATEM, Blackmagic ATEM television switcher, one of the first ones that came out. And I looked at this thing and I just thought it was a waste of time because I didn't know the power of it. And with the kit art came two NX5s, and I wasn't a huge fan of them at the time. But I later knowing or learning that they're kind of like an industry workhorse, was a great camera to have at the time. And I guess going through all of these experiences of Tree 63, you popping into church, hosting people like Martin Smith, Tim Hughes, doing other church experience conferences with Nathan up in Joburg and Jonathan. All that stuff shaped me, and some of them were really good experiences and some of them weren't. And I think I really, in looking in Link Church's history of how we hosted these people, I think my love for hosting a good production with Martin Smith had to be coupled with this video content to draw people to church. So it took me very back to that the first basic of that Facebook video on how to create that momentum online. And I can remember the first time Martin Smith came around, we had an unbelievable attendance. And I really think that a lot of it came down to our online strategy. And at the time, it wasn't only me, but I was just responsible for the video content that went out for that campaign. It was myself and another person. At that time was Simon Taylor, and he did so. I think church did so well at that, and I saw the value in bringing video creation to events. And I think all these things have really shaped the way that I think. So much so that at Link, I knew we had to expand our reach using video. So we invested into a lot of Blackmagic kit probably about 4 years ago. And we've been using it's well paid itself off, in my opinion. And the amount of views that we've seen from all the preach videos, and where it's really placed Link in terms of a production mindset to people and what they expect from us is really high. And so I think keeping that value is in my best interest for not only Link, but the church in South Africa. And so that's, I can see is going to be my next thing that I'm going to dedicate a lot of my time to, especially in the next 10 years, is trying to see how I can bring the creation of video content for each church and how they best can use it. Because I think it's untapped. It's really untapped, man. And it takes team, it takes effort, it takes hard work, it takes a good eye, and it takes a whole bunch of confidence as well.
No, that's spot on, man. I'm absolutely with you there. Thank you so much for sharing that, bro. I didn't know half of those things in terms of your background and how you've kind of connected the dots to put the pieces together to where you are. I mean, what you were saying earlier, like all of the things of our past have kind of nudged us together for a, dare I quote, Esther, for such a time as this. You know, we find ourselves in a world that is needing these tools. And I think even more so now with the likes of social media and digital media and content creation kind of being the buzzword around the industry, that's literally where we find ourselves, you know. Simon, I found something so interesting that you were talking about there, that it's this untapped thing in our worlds of we're really a screen generation. And really what I mean by that is the generalization of us all being on our screens and screen time. I don't know if your screen time has almost like doubled over this time. From lockdowns happened, you know, when I was working for normal kind of work day, my screen time, although I find myself on media and social media all the time, was probably around 3 hours a day. I don't know if that's a lot, but listen, now it's like 5.5, 6 hours a day where I'm on my phone. And that's just my phone, from Zoom meetings to whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, having to now be even more so, we're the screen generation. So the big question is just how do we create content that is captivating enough to have a call to action? More than ever, content is being generated by the second. The amount of hours that is being uploaded onto YouTube every second is a frightening statistic that just seems to be climbing on a monthly basis, on an annual basis. The footage on there it's just frightening. So the question is, just in this world of information technology, that our eyes are stuck to our screens. The big question that I'm always asking myself is, how do we enter into a creative world that engages people in a society where, if you've seen anybody on Instagram, your thumb has that kind of flick through response that you're just going. Myself, the people in our youth groups or our young adults or the people in our church, it's no longer a stop and pause, take in a photo. People used to say a photograph has 1,000 words worth 1,000 words. That's if the person sits long enough and watches. Otherwise, it's so worth 4 or 5. And so the question is actually, how do we figure out what that content looks like? People used to believe, well, let me rather say, there are two trains of thought around. How do you
stop the scroll, Dean? Tell us.
Well, there you go, Brew. How do you stop the scroll? How do we create content that's engaging enough for people to sit up and pay attention? Instagram statistics will tell us you've got about 2 seconds to do that. 1.5 seconds actually, to catch somebody's attention. So what I actually think is, that for a very, very long time, people used to believe that content is king. And a lot of people still believe content is king. And to a certain degree, I think so. But I think in the day and age of the world that we're living in now, I'm not sure it is anymore. And the reason I say that is 20 years ago, content was king because only a few people were able to create it. It took millions of dollars to get a helicopter and a guy with the camera to fly over an ocean and get footage of a surfer. Now, any teenager in most of suburbia in South Africa has a little drone, and you can actually create that content for yourself very, very affordably.
Sure.
So I actually believe that story is king. And that story captures people's attention.
That's it, mate. That's where we're going.
More than the content of ours. So, and all of us know this, actually. All of us have actually walked into a movie before that had $1 trillion budget, but the story was rubbish. And so what happens? You walk out disappointed. You could create scenes and explosions, and then they're in space, and then Matt Damon's doing a thing in a tent on Mars, and millions and millions and millions of dollars. Great. But so often we've walked out of the cinema and gone, the story was rubbish.
Yeah.
So one of the people that I absolutely love in terms of his content creation style and how he went about it, and I must be honest, I'm a little bit more of an old school Casey Neistat fan. He was creating content on a daily basis. Now, was his content always incredible?
No.
The story, though, made me want to come back every single day to see what he was doing, because he had me invested in the story of what he was telling. So the question for each of us, and this is almost where I start when it comes to companies or brands or churches, very, very specifically now,
Sure.
what story are we telling? And are we encouraging people to stick along for the ride as we keep telling those stories using the content that we have at our disposal? So that is going to be videos and graphics and motion graphics and photos and you name it. How do we tell the story of our church? And obviously, as you go down that road, God and Jesus and everything else that goes with that.
Sure. Well, this is such a great point. I think that if any viewers are online now, I think the point that Dean has just made about telling the story goes way back to ancient days of Jesus. When how do you think he spread his message? He pulled people in and told parable. You go through all the Gospels, and he told story, and he landed significance, truth, power through parables. And I think that it's nothing new. I think a lot has competed for our attention, but nothing holds our attention more than story. And so I think, Dean, spot on, bro. If a church can come up with a narrative story on how they can bring the person who attends their church, how do you make Jesus's stories applicable in today's age? I think, especially, and look, I'm just talking for churches here, but I think therein lies the power. And I think that brands can do the exact same thing. What does the brand stand for? What is the narrative that
brands,
they're telling?
And brands do that, man. So, the examples that are often used is, what does McDonald's sell? They don't sell food. And chips. No, they don't. They sell happiness. What are they selling?
Oh, that's true, bro.
They don't sell food. Their marketing isn't about, they're selling happiness, man. Coca-Cola, what do they sell? They're not just selling this little liquid. They're selling that lifestyle. There it is, bro.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we navigate the complexities of telling a good story? And you've hit the nail on the head. The tradition of Jesus was 100% an oral tradition. Up until about the 300, 400, 500 AD, that people really kind of start writing stuff down, and then the Catholic Church started canonizing particular books for particular things, and then you kind of start following the church history trajectory. But actually, it was oral tradition. Come sit around a fire. Let me tell you a story.
Sure.
That's where it happened, man. And you have a look at the guys who are running very, very good talk shows. What makes Trevor Noah so good?
Well, he knows the narrative of South Africa.
He's a storyteller, man.
Yes, he knows every single culture, and he can spin a story out of everything.
He's a storyteller. Get that guy to your party, and you're sorted.
Yeah, that's so good, bro.
Yeah, man.
And there was a point that I wanted to elaborate on that she said, I can't.
Sorry, man.
No worries. Anyway, I think the competition for attention is the name of the game here, and I don't think that. Look, I look at other and that's actually great news for a church who is starting out. That you don't have to have all the gear in the world. You don't have to have all the knowledge.
100%.
You need to have a good narrative. And you need to know what you stand for, and really talk into that, because that's where the true gold of a person lies, in what they believe is always going to translate the best, no matter if it's your cell phone camera or if it's your web camera on your phone. You could live stream a church service exactly like this, and what you have to say may carry more weight than any bit of tech or gear that you have around us. That I think
that's it.
Honestly, so many of us are so spoiled and have far too much that the creativity has been taken out of what we are doing, because we rely on a piece of gear that just does this for us. I mean, I go back to when I first started off just making all my graphics on a cell phone for church, because I didn't know how to graphic design.
Yeah, I mean, even just to try and jump onto what Simon was saying there, the moment you enter into a comparison game around technology and the cameras and the gear that you have, we're never going to be able to keep up with the $1 million budgets of the Elevations, of the Hillsongs. I don't want to use those guys as the examples. We're never going to keep up with the big budgets. But what, like you were saying there, it makes the smaller churches or the smaller companies or the smaller brands pick up your phone and tell the story that you have of the people in your community, of the young people in your community, and mine into what it means to have an authentic story come out of that community. That is absolutely spot on, Simon, man. If your excuse is, I don't have the camera that I want, that's not a good enough excuse anymore.
Okay, so just going down on, I tried to jot down a lot of my thoughts, and I'm enjoying this so much with you, bro. Thanks, man. And I really think that this thing of attention, holding attention online, is where obviously that's the bottom of our conversation here. And I think to let a lot of the viewers who are saying, okay, well, what does that entail? Like, how can I get better on camera? What does holding attention look like best? And I think you've got to firstly, just a couple pointers around that, I think, and I think you can add on to this, is find out what the conversation is in your community. What is the conversation that your customers are saying or asking? What are some of the things that need to be addressed? So really knowing your customer base, or knowing what the need is in your community, therein lies one big point. And there's another guy who I've been following for years. His name is Brady Shearer, and he's a member of, he calls himself Pro Church Nation, and he's got a thing called Pro Church Tools.
Yeah.
And he has a couple really good videos on how to teach people how to speak on camera and to come across in a more positive way. Because I think some of us can always speak like this into the camera, and we're saying come to church on Sunday. why not speak like this with our hands, where things can come across with more energy? We're looking up and we're engaging with people. I think he has a couple tutorials on this that are amazing. I've sent it to, again, I think that there'll only be 2 or 3 guys on your team who are worth having on camera. Can I say that? Because I think a lot of how they come across on camera is important. It's important that a body posture holds attention on the screen.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very tactical way of holding people's attention, is grooming a person, spending enough time with them and showing them how you want them to translate on camera. And this guy, Brady Shearer, goes through from A to Z on that. He's the best that I've seen in the church world space, stuff. And maybe Nathan, or if you can, I can send you a link to his YouTube channel maybe later.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. What was the first thing you said?
It's knowing the conversation.
The conversation that's currently being had. There's absolutely nothing wrong. There's absolutely nothing worse than answering questions that nobody's asking. And within the world of tourism that I was so engrossed in, the tourism industry, their number one goal was bums in beds. That was their catchphrase. How do we get bums into beds? Yes, it's great to make videos, and yes, it's great to have wonderful photos and everything else that goes with it. But the hotel general manager is going to ask, how many bums did this get us into beds? Because at the end of the day, that's what they're selling.
Sure.
So for each of us, we need to be very clear about what our, to use a social media term, our call to action is. So in psychology around digital media and social media, there's a phrase that gets used: who's your imagined audience? So the moment you click upload or the moment you click post, who's your imagined audience?
Yeah.
Now, if you take that 3 or 4 steps back, if you're creating a video, who is your imagined audience? If you're creating a video for kids or for your children's church or for children's ministry, you're going to have a much different attitude if you're creating content for your 7 a.m. service that is for a little bit more of a traditional congregation that is more familiar with hymns and a almost said eulogy, but a benediction type chant or repeat. Those videos are going to look very different to a 6 p.m. young adults YXYA hype it up, do the monkey dance type video. So we've got to be very, very clear about the answers, or rather the questions that we're actually trying to answer to our imagined audience. So I think that's absolutely spot on. And what that does is it changes the way we go about creating the content. And that's where we can get super fun and super edgy, and welcome to the world of TikTok and welcome to the world of Instagram stories. That's when it gets really super creative, and you can dive into that world with every ounce of energy that you have to tell that story.
Sure.
Because the story still remains.
Sure.
The content can float underneath it and do what it needs to do, but that story is still the story of your church, and the story that you're wanting to push through there. And that's where it gets super fun. And what you were saying earlier, takes a bit of teamwork, it takes a little bit of guts and know-how.
Yeah.
I remember a little memory that's come to mind now. Kieran, I think, is watching. Kieran Hempel, how's it, man? We did a little shoot and we went up a construction building. We got permission from some of the landlords there. And we wanted to film us running up. And so we went up the building, but the staircase was like all the way down. And we kept filming, and I said, Kieran, run down the stairs. And then I threw the camera down the stairs and he caught it in his shirt. And that little moment is something we'll never ever forget, but it was part of what we were doing. And a little bit of risk, a little bit of fun, a little bit of energy that goes with it. But you throw a phone down a staircase and there's a fun transition, you know. So those things are all possible. That's really possible.
Yeah. Man, I love what you have to say, Dean. Tell me, what are you guys at Father's House doing now that lockdown has happened? How are you creating a lot of your social engagement? What campaigns are you guys running? What's adding to the narrative of your church's story in this time?
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that so much, Sams. I think you and me both, man. I could sit and chat here with you the whole afternoon. So Nathan might just have to cut us off when he says we're done. But it's been a weird time for so many people trying to chat to people about the world of COVID and what it's done to our communities and what it's done to our churches and navigating church online and going down that world. I really have tried to stick as closely to the idea of the story that we're telling and how to use technology and production to tell that story on behalf of the church for those who then log in and consume that content. I had without getting super spiritual, too deep too quickly, as this thing was kind of happening and we knew that the lockdown was coming, in the Old Testament of the Hebrew scriptures, there's a story where Joseph has a dream and there's 7 fat years and 7 lean years, and then he's like, okay, we need to build barns and we need to put a whole bunch of stuff in there. And almost as if it happened yesterday, I felt like we needed to have that moment. So one of the first things we did as this lockdown was happening on the last day, the creative production comms team got together and we literally shot 96 videos on the last day before lockdown.
Wow.
And we loaded our hard drives. And our hard drives are still full and they're still pushing. And I just hope we're not in this thing for 96 days. But we have a video a day, a devotional a day for the people that we're connecting to online. So 6 o'clock every morning that gets pushed out. And now we're exploring the different content creation strategies around doing live video and connecting to pastors. The most incredible thing that I'm so aware of is just the fact that technology is here to serve us as we go down this road.
Sure.
We have all the technology at our disposal. My iPhone can do Facebook and Instagram live for free.
Yeah.
Like for free. It's unbelievable. And we are able to tap into that for our communities and our churches. Zoom, you can do the same thing to connect to people. So we are still really striving. At Father's House, I'm going to get it wrong now. This is going to get me into a lot of trouble. It is, I've gone blank. I've gone absolutely blank. I can't remember what it is now. I'm going to get fired. But it is church for the unchurched. It is grace to every ends of the earth for people in every sphere and every season. So we're always pushing.
You've forgotten.
Yeah, I've actually forgotten it, man. I can't believe it. But that's the story that we're telling. Regardless of how far you are, God's grace is enough for you in whatever season you find yourself in. And so that is still the message that we're trying to push out. That if anybody asks, what is Father's House about? I hope that they would land at everyone's welcome and God's grace is enough. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I think it's always been to see people far from God raised to life in Christ, that being the old one, but now to create life-giving churches that shape culture and influence nations is what the church anchors itself on. And I think just this online space is another culture, man. And so I think if we can start creating a good narrative in this space, I think we're going to, our influence is ultimately just going to grow. naturally. If you look at the story of Jesus and what he has to give to the world, it's a message of hope. And look at what people need in this time. People feeling super insecure. People need a good something to follow. They're looking for community. It's all these things that it has to offer and is in our hands to steward well. And I think there's never been a better time now than to execute and deploy a great strategy to firstly keep people in community, reach more people for the church, and to really add value. I think the third one is the church has huge value in how to do life together and how to restore relationships and all that type of stuff. So you're scratching for content. I think you need to go back and relook at your game plan board if you're a church. But there's tons to speak about, and so try and bring what you stand for, the narrative, and how you're going to bring that across to people. Basically, that 90 shot thing that you did, Dean, was awesome, bro. So cool that you took that initiative, and great foresight, and well done.
Thanks, bro.
So a lot of what we did at Link was we never had that much time. I think I got back from Cape Town the day before, so I had 1 day of creating content.
Yeah.
And I think I just put that whole 1 day into creating worship experiences. And we only managed to get 3 weeks of worship down. So now that that's finished, we've got guys who are our worship pastor. She luckily has a DSLR camera who is recording in one of her living rooms, and she's doing it and sending it across to a junior employee at church who has just come on and placed amazing value. Justin, I know you're watching. Justin, Mr. Kinners, and he masters the sound for us and everything. And this is how we are getting by week to week. So our pastor is out in Mauritius, and he's filming his messages on a GoPro. The audio is not great, and by the time it arrives to me, it's like really compressed, and it's a crashed image that I'm working with. But going back, the message and what he has to say is top class. And so the way that I'm delivering it is I'm trying to build in these church motion graphic things in behind the video, just to create some extra spice. I'm putting his social media handles on continually, the way that I bring up the lower thirds for scripture and his points, bringing up, and I'm trying to hold your visual attention as well as your auditory one. I know that Dylan is doing that very well with the auditory and hitting the message and what's going in, but I'm trying to hold the person's attention with their eyes. And so sometimes there's this fine line between, there's so much going on the screen here, less is more. I sometimes battle with that because I have so much to put on there, but I have to constantly remind myself, don't take away from the message.
Good.
And so going back into our lobby chats, Dean, this is where for the 3-4 weeks now that we've been doing this, I think we're going to be finding new, I think receiving church on a live stream could become stale very quickly if there's no face-to-face interaction. I don't think we were ever created to talk to each other through keypads, big geographical spaces. And I think that we still need to always see people's tone of voice, what people's faces, because that carries the most value in my opinion, I think. And so we're looking at ways at how we can create this Zoom chat environment while we are on the back of a pre-recorded message that's come through. So I would play my worship, play my my message, and then on the back of that, I've got a separate machine that I'm hosting a Zoom conversation on, and then I'm cutting to that shot in YCast Pro, and then we have a full-on conversation of people talking live, face to face, and we can put as many people as we want on that conversation. They'll be live Zoom together in community, and they'll be broadcasted to reaching more people. But the people in the Zoom chat will be reading the Facebook comments on a separate device. So that way they'll be able to, Simon Wilson Berea says, how did Jesus heal the blind man? Okay, let's talk about that, Dean. You and I, we're in the Zoom chat now. We're going to talk about how did Jesus perform all his miracles? So instantly that viewer feels heard, appreciated, and possibly a community that he can be a part of. If he's watching on the Church Online platform, which is another whole subject that I really want to punt through the roof, is where we're going to see our most measurables during this time is on a platform that we can truly measure, not only by viewership, but by engagement. And that's the key here, is what actions are people taking? Are they giving? Are they joining groups? Are they requesting live prayer, which the Church Online platform provides? Are they getting groups for during the week to be hosted in a Zoom chat meeting? And all of this is controlled by Planning Center Online. So if you hop on that site and you click any one of those call to actions, we have your details straight away. And we're able to connect with you with your cell phone, email address, and we can position you into community with others. I think I really don't want this conversation to be about influence and just, we're church. We have to look at what we're called to, and it's fellowship, breaking of bread together. That's what I believe is the church's sole responsibility, and how we are using our video message to get people into those rooms and be a part of the community and conversation. I think we can take it home from there. We can punch the sky and say we've won. Because so many Sundays I can look back on and be like, I don't know what we achieved there other than just putting out a broadcast. And so now, moving forward, I think we have to be ever more intentional about the call to actions that we give. We need to measure those. And because I think church could look like this till the end of the year. And I really think that the gathering things might only come back next year. Who knows? But I think for the next good part of this year, we better become specialists at this. And so,
absolutely.
Past being influential with video, I think we need to be online pastors, man. We need to know what people are asking and how best to address their situations. And you guys have unbelievable reach, by the way. The viewership that you get on those Facebook Live sessions that you guys do, it's incredible. How do you guys do that?
Oh, thanks, bro. Yeah, we are trying to do what we're calling Tier 10 with Pastor George. That's happening every morning. As we kind of went into the lockdown season, we knew we were going to need to set that up in his house to be able to do that very, very simply. So Reese and Curtis, some of the guys on our team, are our remote IT geniuses, and so they're logging on and kind of hooking into his system to help him and serve him, and they're doing their own thing there and working miracles. It's unbelievable. Those guys are incredible. And so Pastor George goes live every single morning, 10 o'clock, and there just pushes the narrative of what the church is. So, to jump onto what you were saying there, and to go back to my previous point around hotels asking how do we get bums into beds, there is a philosophy and an ideal and a slogan or a logo, or you name it what you like, that has the church mission or vision statement, that is the ultimate goal of what we're doing here. So to touch on those things you were saying there around fellowship or breaking bread, each church and each organization needs to ask those questions. I think we can very, very quickly get caught up in metrics and get caught up in what we think the statistics are saying or what the data analysis is saying. But what I always say when people get into these sorts of debates is, regardless of the metric that you're using, consistency is key. And if you're able to hang on to a consistent thread that shows a particular trajectory of whether it's increase or decrease or whatever you're looking for, that is where it gets critical, because you have to then be able to criticize the data that you are looking at. And then you've got to be brave enough to ask yourself the difficult questions. Okay, this isn't going the way we thought it was. What do we have to change? So you can't just keep hitting your head against the brick and hope that that the numbers are going to increase, or the viewing time is going to increase, or the giving is going to increase, or the dropouts are going to decrease. You know, depending on the statistic that you're looking at, there you've got to be consistent, and there you've got to be critical to push towards the final goal that you're hoping for.
Sure. Nathan, I told you this guy was going to be gold, man.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, guys, man.
If you're a pastor at home that basically just has a cell phone or a laptop and you don't have access to gear and stuff, there are a couple online resources that I think could help you in terms of hosting people. Maybe you want to have a face-to-face chat with another pastor from across town hosted on Facebook Live, but you don't know how to do that. I think I'm just going to share my screen here quick. I'm sure you guys can see that, but this is a piece of software called B.Live. And basically it enables you to host somebody online in another location, conveniently being COVID-19. You can't go over to his house. You're going to host him in this chat room, and you can send this to Facebook Live and YouTube. I think this is an excellent way of hosting I think they've got a couple pricing tiers over here which enable more platforms and stuff. There's another one that's very similar called StreamYard, and this does very much the same kind of thing, but I know it's very interactive with the presentation that you may have. You can bring in presentations that you can build online here, bring in some lower thirds, and host a very interactive preach. Again, this is going to help hold that attendance, hold that attention, and land a great story. To get on Instagram Live, there's a platform called Yellow Duck, which basically can it gets the signal from one of your encoders. I mean, everybody can have access to OBS, and you can go onto Instagram Live with that. And then just a couple of other things. This church motion graphics, I think every church should to help enhance their visual experience online for people. Every month you get a visuals pack of motions. There's stills in here. Load quick. You got some templates for social media stuff. Welcome to church online. It's great. This stuff all helps with a small team. I'm very aware that there are people watching this that may not have huge teams at hand. This is very easy to do if you're a one-man show. So I'm going to stop there. And again, I think my last thing to help people speak on camera, definitely guys look at Pro Church Tools with Brady Shearer. And then I have another document here, Nathan, about a church who's doing a case study on how to do church a new way with Zoom. So basically they're using Zoom to host the media and talk to all the people whom they're hosting, kind of like connect group or home group type story. I have a PDF document over here that maybe I can send to you and make available to the viewers. I just found it extremely insightful for what's happening now. And let me make myself clear as well. Dean and I are not the gurus on this. We are not the people who have the answers. I do think that the people who are going to succeed in this space are those who have the most courage and who are going to be willing to try new things and not look back on it and call it a failure. So be brave. Like I said in the beginning, I think this next season is going to demand the most courage out of us online pastors. So that's it from me. Out of some tangible take homes of resource, maybe you have some,
yeah, man, I think that's absolutely spot on. I think Simon, I speak on behalf of both of us. I hope that follow and connect with us on Instagram and Facebook, and we'd love to stay engaged in the conversation and try and answer any questions or just assist where we can. If you're looking for, I just saw there one thing that came to mind there for photos, still images. Unsplash is free images that you can use for your church if you need them. Stock footage, video footage is the difficult one often. If you're looking for high quality stock footage, unfortunately, there's a premium there, and the dollar right now isn't doing us any favors. Yeah, I'm all about YouTube actually. I really am. Diving into as many little wormholes as you can, from YouTube tutorials to Casey Neistat and Peter McKinnon to Brady Shearer, and somebody who has genuinely, that I try and read every day, is Carey Nieuwhof. Carey Nieuwhof releases a blog every day and a podcast. He has a leadership podcast where he connects with most of the guys. His latest one, I think, is with Ken Costa, who's a shout out to Ken Costa and the Fashia brothers, guys in London. He's a financial director with some of the big guys and involved at HTB with Nicky Gumbel. And he just did his latest podcast there is with Carey Nieuwhof, talking about the financial times and where he sees this entire thing going. So Carey is an amazing resource to jump onto.
Awesome.
Yeah, all right, cool. I think that's kind of all the time we had allocated. So thank you, guys. That's really insightful. Like I certainly learned something. Story is king. We'll remember that, I think, even internally in what we're doing. So yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks, Dean. It's really insightful.
Awesome.